Imagine, for just a second, that you are showing up to the single most important exam of your entire year.
Okay.
You've studied for months, you take your seat, you're totally ready to go, and the moment you press your pencil to the paper, the lead just snaps.
Oh, man. The worst feeling.
Right. And you raise your hand to ask for another one, and the proctor looks you dead in the eye and says, sorry, there are no more pencils in the entire school.
Just completely out of luck.
Exactly. You're just sitting there, helpless, watching the clock tick down. Keep that feeling of utter sinking dread in your mind right now, because that is exactly what is happening to Aston Martin at the 2026 Formula One Australian Grand Prix.
It really is.
Welcome to this deep dive into the completely shocking start of the new F1 season down in Melbourne. I'm your host, and I'm here with our resident F1 expert to break it all down.
Hey, everyone. I'm so ready to get into this one. The paddock is just buzzing right now.
It's electric. So our mission today is to unpack this catastrophic technical crisis unfolding in the Aston Martin garage. And then we're going to comb through the Free Practice 1 and Free Practice 2 telemetry to see which teams are actually hiding race-winning speed under these brand new 2026 regulations.
Because there is a lot hiding in that data.
Oh, for sure. We've got a massive stack of sources to go through today. Trackside reports, press conference transcripts featuring some incredibly explosive quotes from ADRIAN, NEWEY, and top-tier paddock analysis from up and down the pit lane.
Some of the most brutal honesty I've ever seen from NEWEY, honestly.
Yeah, we will definitely get to that. Now, before we really get into the weeds, I need to state that this segment is part of our news coverage of recent F1 events. Okay, let's unpack this. The scene at Albert Park is usually electric for the dawn of a new regulatory era. Okay?
Absolutely. It's normally a festival of optimism.
But for Aston Martin, Friday was just an absolute nightmare.
It is the starkest contrast you can possibly imagine between winter testing expectations and trackside reality. I mean, you arrive at the first race of a brand new cycle in 2026. The aero concepts look wildly different. The power units are completely overhauled.
The anticipation is just sky high.
Right. And yet for Aston Martin, Free Practice 1 was practically a non-event.
Yeah.
Fernando Alonso literally could not even leave the garage.
Not even an installation lap?
Not a single one. He didn't manage a single installation lap. Lance Stroll did manage to get out there, but he only completed 3 laps before being immediately called back into the pits.
3 laps, that's nothing.
Looking at the total running for Friday, across both FP1 and FP2, the entire team only scraped together 31 laps combined.
Wow.
In the context of modern data gathering, flying blind into a Saturday under a completely new set of regulations with only 31 laps of telemetry, it's a disaster class.
Here's where it gets really interesting, or frankly terrifying if you're wearing British racing green this weekend. The root of this isn't some minor sensor glitch or a little software bug that they can just patch overnight.
Not at all.
Reading through the transcripts from ADRIAN NEWEY's press conference, the sheer honesty he delivered was just brutal.
Yeah.
He laid out the exact nature of their battery allocation crisis.
NEWEY's candor was staggering.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't try to spin the narrative. He didn't hide behind typical PR deflections like we usually see.
No corporate speak.
Exactly. He stated plainly that Aston Martin arrived in Australia with 4 batteries for their power units. That is obviously a finite allocation for a race weekend.
Right.
But almost immediately upon firing up the systems, severe functional errors destroyed 2 of those batteries entirely.
Just fried them.
Completely bricked. So, as NEWEY pointed out to the media, as they sit in the garage heading into Saturday, they only have 2 operational batteries left on site.
2 batteries for 2 cars.
One for Alonso's car and one for Stroll's car for the entirety of the weekend.
Meaning, if they experience a single failure during Free Practice 3 or during qualifying, that driver is simply done.
Done. Packing their bags.
They can't fly a replacement component in from Sakura in time to make the grid. Think about the psychological toll that must take on the engineers and the drivers. It's immense.
Oh, it paralyzes the entire garage.
They can't run the cars at their true limit because they are completely terrified of breaking the one remaining lifeline they have.
Yeah.
They can't execute proper high-speed, low-fuel qualifying simulations because that puts maximum stress on the power unit.
It completely freezes their setup progression. At this moment, the team's primary objective isn't dialing in the aero balance or, looking at the midfield points fight.
No, they're miles away from that.
It's surviving the 107% cutoff. Right now, Aston Martin is sitting about 5 seconds off the pace.
5 seconds in Formula One is an eternity.
It's a different category entirely. They are dangerously close to that cliff edge, fighting just to have the legal right to line up on the grid on Sunday.
The irony of this timing is wild to me. Fernando Alonso made his Formula One debut in 2001, driving for Minardi down at the very back of the grid.
Mm.
And here we are at the 2026 Australian Grand Prix, his 25th anniversary in the sport. And after a quarter of a century, he's publicly admitting that the team is at, quote, point zero.
It has to hurt.
He was noticeably frustrated in the pressers about the reality of having an exclusive works engine supplier that somehow has zero spare parts to offer them. It's heartbreaking for a driver who thought this 2026 project was his final shot at a third championship.
It's a really bitter pill for Alonso, and it forces us to look directly at the Honda partnership, which is the elephant in the room here.
Let's get into Honda.
Because Honda just spent the last few years powering Max Verstappen to multiple world championships. They built arguably the most robust and powerful power unit of the previous era.
Bulletproof engines.
Exactly. Yet they've delivered an engine for the 2026 regulations that is seemingly fragile and vastly uncompetitive right out of the box.
Let's dig into how that actually happened, because the timeline of Honda's departure and return is the key here.
It really is the smoking gun.
Right, because when they officially announced they were leaving Formula One at the end of the 2021 season, they obviously scaled back their motorsport operations.
Naturally.
But when they reversed course to become the full works partner for Aston Martin in 2026, you'd assume they just got the old band back together.
You would think so.
Where did all those championship-winning engineers actually go? Did rival teams poach the entire department?
Rival teams certainly grabbed some key figures, but the biggest brain drain actually happened internally within Honda.
Inside the company itself?
Yes. When Honda regrouped to build this 2026 engine, they discovered that 70% of their original championship-winning staff had been permanently reassigned.
70%.
70%. They were working on consumer projects, alternative energy initiatives, and specifically solar panel development.
Solar panels? You're kidding.
I'm completely serious. The new team, tasked with building the 2026 F1 power unit, largely lacks the specific, hard-won trackside experience of the previous group.
That explains so much.
And it gets deeper. Lawrence Stroll, Andy Cowell, and ADRIAN Newey actually flew to Tokyo in November of 2025 to confront rumors that the engine development was lagging.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's when the Aston Martin brass fully realized the true extent of the personnel turnover.
They must have been panicking.
Absolutely. And adding another massive layer of complexity is the 2026 cost cap for engine manufacturers.
Right, the financial rules changed too.
In the past, Honda could just run the dynos 24/7, hire 100 new engineers, and spend their way out of the deficit. Now they are legally restricted in how much capital they can deploy to fix these critical flaws.
So the team is different, the budget is capped, but we really need to look at the mechanical failure itself. What is actually physically breaking inside the chassis to destroy these batteries so quickly?
The root of the technical fault lies within the internal combustion engine, the ICE.
Oh.
It is producing severe, violent vibrations. The combustion process is so harsh and unbalanced that is literally shaking the surrounding components to pieces.
Like it's tearing itself apart.
Precisely. The battery, given its dense packaging and highly sensitive electronics, simply cannot withstand that level of harmonic resonance. It shakes until the internal connections fail.
That's incredible.
NEWEY actually mentioned that the vibrations are so intense they are transmitting straight through the chassis and into the driver's fingers on the steering wheel.
That sounds physically punishing for Alonso and Stroll over a full race distance. What's really intriguing to me, though, is the massive clash of perspectives going on inside that garage right now.
The politics of it all.
Right, because on one side, you have ADRIAN Newey, perhaps the greatest aerodynamicist in F1 history, saying out loud to the press that Honda realistically needs to abandon their hopes for 2026 and focus entirely on building a functional power unit for 2027.
Writing off the year on Friday.
He wants to write off the entire regulatory cycle before the first red lights have even gone out.
It's a remarkably blunt assessment, but it reflects the pragmatic reality of the development curve under a strict cost cap.
How so?
If the core architecture of the engine is fundamentally flawed, throwing your limited development dollars at it is just a sunk cost fallacy. You're wasting money you need for next year.
Right. Cut your losses.
Exactly. However, there's a totally conflicting narrative coming from the Honda side of the garage.
Yeah, truly.
Shintaro Orihara, Honda's trackside engineer, is projecting a much more optimistic view. He claims that the emergency countermeasures, specifically running 24-hour shifts at the Sakura factory back in Japan, are bearing fruit,
But are they really?
Well, according to Orihara, the telemetry gathered during that highly limited FP2 running showed a measurable reduction in those destructive vibrations.
Okay, Orihara is claiming the countermeasures are working, but 15 laps instead of 5?
Right, surviving practice isn't surviving a Grand Prix.
We'll see if that optimism holds up under actual race conditions. It's fascinating that a massive regulation change combined with a cost cap can bury a giant like Honda. But looking at the top of the timing sheets, it's actually compressed the front of the field brilliantly.
It's incredibly tight at the front,
6 cars are separated by just over half a second.
which is exactly what you want to see.
Yeah.
A major regulation overhaul always carries the threat of spreading the field out as teams find different loopholes. But the early data suggests the opposite at the sharp end.
Who stood out to you first?
In FP1, Ferrari came out swinging. Charles Leclerc copped the session with a 1.20.267, with Lewis Hamilton right there tucked in behind him.
Hamilton in red is still something to get used to.
It is. But the Ferrari looks incredibly compliant. Watching the onboard footage, the car transitions beautifully through the high-speed chicane in Sector 2 without snapping on the drivers.
It looks planted.
Very predictable.
Yeah.
But the narrative shifted quite dramatically in the afternoon during FP2.
It definitely did, because McLaren decided it was time to show their hand.
Oh, did they ever?
Oscar Piastri strapped on the soft tires and just dominated the session, putting down a blistering 1.1.729.
A phenomenal lap.
It was the only lap to break into the 1-minute 19-second bracket all day long. The McLaren looks utterly planted through Albert Park's fastest sections.
Unshakable.
But, you know, whenever practice times look a little too straightforward, my mind immediately goes to the garage that historically hides their true pace until Q3, Mercedes.
The classic sandbaggers.
Exactly. George Russell and their highly anticipated rookie, Kimi Antonelli, didn't really trouble the top of the single-lap charts today.
No, they didn't. But looking at the raw telemetry, rather than just the headline lap times, reveals the true picture for Mercedes.
What did you see in the data?
If you ignore the single-lap glory runs and focus on the race simulations, their data is downright ominous.
Ominous for everyone else?
Exactly. While Piastri was setting the world on fire over a single lap, Russell and Antonelli were executing incredibly consistent long runs. Their lap times were hovering steadily in the 1.23s and 1.24s.
Just hammering them in.
Right, and Antonelli, despite the immense pressure of his debut weekend, was reeling off laps like a metronome. 24.4, 24.6, 23.4, 24.0.
That is tight.
That delta spread is microscopic for a rookie on a high fuel load. It suggests a car that is very kind to its tires and possesses a massive operating window. They aren't showing their hand on ultimate single-lap pace yet, but their race pace looks incredibly potent.
Speaking of hidden pace, we have to talk about Lando Norris. The other McLaren finished the day down in 7th. On paper, that looks like a somewhat disappointing session compared to Piastri topping the charts.
Right, it looks like a big gap between teammates.
But the data tells a completely different story for him as well, doesn't it?
It does. When Norris set his fastest lap to place 7th, the telemetry indicates he was carrying a very heavy fuel load.
Ah, there it is.
He had already been out on track for over 15 laps without pitting. To set a time only a second off Piastri's blistering pace while carrying the mass of 15 laps worth of fuel is remarkable.
Because weight is everything around Albert Park.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It strongly suggests that Norris has a significant amount of pace in reserve for qualifying when they finally drain the tanks and turn the engine up.
Okay, so Ferrari, McLaren, and Mercedes all look like genuine threats for pole position. But venturing outside that top group, there was absolute chaos everywhere else you look on the grid.
Complete mayhem in the midfield.
We are so used to seeing Max Verstappen dominating these sessions, but he had a genuinely messy Friday.
He did. The new RB22 did not look like the dominant force of the previous era. Verstappen pushed a bit too hard while attacking on the soft tires, lost the apex, and took a heavy trip through the gravel trap.
Sparks everywhere.
And that excursion caused significant damage to the floor of his car. Now, under these new ground effect regulations, the floor is generating the vast majority of the car's downforce.
It's the most important aerodynamic piece on the car.
By far. Damaging those intricate underbody tunnels severely compromised his data gathering for the remainder of the session. He was highly vocal on the radio about the balance being off and firmly stated he doesn't feel they have the fastest car this weekend.
Which is crazy to hear from Max. Moving down the grid, Carlos Sainz is starting his new chapter with Williams, and he's currently sitting down in 12th place. Reading the reports, they are fighting a massive weight issue with the new chassis.
Yeah, the Williams FW48 is suffering from a significantly overweight chassis, and you can visibly see it punishing Sainz out on track.
How does that show up in the telemetry?
Through the high-speed direction changes in Sector 2, the mass transfer is just killing his minimum corner speeds. The car is sluggish to change direction.
Right.
Sainz is driving brilliantly just to wrestle it into 12th. But until the team can manufacture lighter components, which takes time and eats heavily into their development budget under the cost cap, he's going to be fighting with an inherent lap time deficit.
And over at Alpine, things looked truly terrifying for a second.
My heart stopped on that one.
Franco Colapinto suffered a sudden, complete loss of power right on the fastest straight. The car just died. And Lewis Hamilton, who was on a flying lap right behind him, had to take extreme evasive action to avoid a massive rear-end collision.
The closing speeds were frightening.
It's a stark reminder to everyone of how quickly things can go wrong when these complex new power units fail without warning.
A very dangerous moment.
And finally, we have to look at the newest addition to the grid, Cadillac.
It has been a brutal baptism by fire for the new American entry.
Just a really tough day.
Sergio Perez experienced a major mechanical breakdown out on track, which triggered a virtual safety car and actually ruined the long-run data gathering for several other teams.
Making few friends on day one.
Exactly. But beyond the reliability concerns, their raw pace is alarming. Looking at the microsectors, the Cadillac is currently a full second behind the rest of the midfield pack.
A full second behind the cars in front of them.
And that is a death sentence in modern F1. Being a second adrift of the cars immediately in front of you means you are entirely disconnected from the DRS trains.
No slipstream to pull you along.
Exactly. They're isolated at the back, just trying to survive the weekend and gather whatever baseline data they can.
Stepping back from all of this, from the dizzying highs of Piastri's lap to the absolute depths of Aston Martin's battery crisis and Cadillac's struggles, what does this all mean for you listening? Why does this specific Friday in Melbourne matter so much in the grand scheme of the 2026 championship?
I think the most crucial takeaway from today's data is a brutal reminder of the nature of Formula One. Past success guarantees absolutely nothing when the rulebook is rewritten.
The slate is wiped clean.
We are witnessing the raw power of a massive regulation change combined with a strict cost cap. It has the ability to completely reset the competitive order overnight.
Just look at Honda.
Exactly. You can go from being the engine supplier that dominated the last 4 years to fighting just to start the race. It proves that the moment you rest on your laurels or lose key engineering talent to other projects, the grid will swallow you whole.
It's unforgiving.
The safety net of infinite development money is gone. You have to be smart, efficient, and precise with every upgrade, or you become a backmarker.
The safety net is totally gone. And that brings me to a final lingering question that I really want you to mull over. We've talked about ADRIAN Newey suggesting that Honda needs to write off 2026 and focus on the 2027 engine after just one single practice session.
A massive statement.
If you are Fernando Alonso, what goes through your mind when you hear your technical director say that?
At this stage in his legendary career, he doesn't have multiple seasons to sit around and wait for a multi-year rebuild.
The clock is ticking loud.
His championship window is right now. Is this technical nightmare the insurmountable hurdle that finally ends his time in Formula One? Or is this just going to be another impossible situation that he will try to miraculously outdrive? It's something we are going to watch incredibly closely as this season unfolds.
It is going to be a fascinating story to track.
Make sure you stay updated as we track the fallout from Melbourne. Don't forget to follow the show on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube so you never miss an update on this incredibly unpredictable 2026 season. See you next time.